Hey, this is Jamey Stegmeyer with Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite dexterity games that disc golfers might also enjoy. For some context here, if you're not familiar with disc golf, this was a sport that I got into around this time last year in 2020 during the pandemic when it was kind of hard to play a lot of different sports with different people. But disc golf provided me a really nice refuge to get outside, to throw essentially what is a small, heavy frisbee at baskets with chains hanging from them. And you try to get the basket, you try to get the disc in the basket on these courses that are essentially constructed like golf courses, but with some really, really interesting obstacles depending on the course. So I've been playing this game for about a year now, and really enjoying it, and really gotten into the kind of the world of disc golf, watching disc golf tournaments on YouTube, engaging with disc golfers on Instagram, things like that. And so I wanted to share. I know there are some disc golfers out there who are interested in board games, and I thought I'd share some of my favorite dexterity games that I think are particularly applicable to disc golfers who maybe want to try an experience that isn't exactly disc golf, but has some elements of disc golf on the tabletop. I'll start with some honorable mentions of dexterity games that don't really necessarily correlate with disc golf specifically, or I haven't played them, one of the two. So there's Menara, Catacombs, Catch the Moon, Drop It, Gulo Gulo, Jenga, Jungle Speed, Junk Art, Suspend, Final Flicktier, Tokyo Highway, Rampage, Men at Work, and Klask. Quite a few of those I simply haven't played, so they might even have made it onto this list. A few of my favorite dexterity games that didn't quite meet this list because they don't involve flicking in particular are Go Cuckoo, Animal Upon Animal, Rhino Hero, Meeple Circus, and The Climbers. Those are some great dexterity games that just aren't exactly fit for this exact list. So let's jump right into my top 10. I actually only own one of these games, so I only have one of them to show you. I don't play a ton of dexterity games on an ongoing basis, but my number 10 is Pitch Car. Pitch Car is a really interesting game. I mean, the core of the game is that you are flicking a car, a little car meeple token, around a wooden track that can actually get quite big. There is a flicking element to it, and you're trying to really push this car as far as possible along this track, and it can really hit the curves and slide around the track if you flick it really well. But I would say one of the main reasons why I put it on this list is that you can construct the track any way you want. You can do a very simple track. You can make a giant track. I've been to conventions where I've seen giant pitch car tracks. And I think that with disc golfers, one of the things that we rarely do or get to do is design our own course. We just go out and play on courses that already exist. And so I thought this would be fun for a disc golfer who maybe wants that level of creativity of designing a course just a little bit, because it doesn't take that long to put together a pitch car course, opposed to actually designing a full disc golf course. So that's why I put Pitch Car at my number 10. At number 9, I put Flick 'em Up. This is the one game on this list that I haven't actually played, but I really thought it belonged on this list because Flick 'em Up is very much so a game where you are flicking tokens in a Western theme. There's also a Dead of Winter theme, but the Western theme I think is the one that's known a little bit better. You're flicking a token to knock down different pieces all across the board. There's a lot of setup that goes into like creating this atmosphere. It's like a scene from a Western movie, and you were trying to flick so that you hit certain things and don't hit certain things. It's kind of like a shootout in a Western movie. And so obviously disc golf is not a shootout sport. You're not targeting anyone in particular. You're targeting just the basket. But I thought this was very applicable for this list, dexterity games that disc golfers might enjoy. That's Flick 'em Up. At number 8 is Fireball Island. Fireball Island is a game from like the 70s or 80s that was recently revived by Restoration Games. It involves a giant plastic painted island where you are trying to move a token around the island and collect different treasures before you escape the island. There's also a random element in the middle of this island where you're dropping marbles down through a volcano. I think it's called Volcor in the game. It's essentially a volcano, and that marble might hit different pieces across the board. But there are also moments in the game where you get to throw things or flick things across the board as you try to hit different things. And one of the really nice things about Fireball Island is that I wouldn't say that like you don't typically, well, at least I haven't played Fireball Island to win. I play because it's just kind of outlandishly colorful and large and fun and easy to get to the table. It's one of these games that I could play for a few minutes and have a great time with and not need to play, it doesn't need to have my full attention. I don't need to play it for the full hour, however long it takes. And so I thought for maybe disc golfers who aren't familiar with many modern hobby games, they might enjoy Fireball Island as just more of an activity, really, with some flicking elements. Yeah, I keep saying flicking as if it's similar to disc golf. In disc golf, you're not actually flicking anything, but I think that's the abstracted version of throwing a disc for tabletop games. So yeah, Fireball Island, my number 8. I think you'll be able to find a very affordable version at Target pretty soon. And number 7 is Ice Cool. This is a really cool game. I haven't played this in a while, but Ice Cool is a really, really neat game where you are playing as a penguin and you are trying to work your way through a maze. I believe you're trying to collect some stuff along the way, but overall you're trying to work your way through a maze, hit other penguins, and get to a certain point in this box. And the really cool thing about Ice Cool is that the setup for it, you're essentially taking a lot of smaller boxes out of the game box and setting them up in a specific configuration. And I think you can even create your own configurations, but there is a specific configuration that they can go in. And so they've really used these components well so that there are walls to it. You don't have to like set up walls. The walls are built into these boxes inside the game box. And you're just aligning these boxes so that there are little doorways between certain ones. You can even flick the penguin over the wall, over these little box-sized walls into different rooms in this maze of sorts. And so just the things that you can do with the flicking, where you're flicking through doors, you're flicking over walls, you can even kind of create spin moves because the penguins are round at their base. They can spin around and go around corners if you flick them really well. Yeah, it's really neat to see what you can do when you're flicking these penguin meeples around this maze in Ice Cool. And that reminds me, obviously, a lot of disc golf, because in disc golf, you are very rarely throwing a disc perfectly straight. There are times where you're doing that, but there's a lot of times where you're trying to curve around an obstacle. And so I think if you really like that challenge, you might enjoy Ice Cool. That's my number 7. At number 6, I have Mars Open. And this actually, really Mars Open, I think, is almost exactly disc golf distilled into a tabletop game. I put some games higher than it because I enjoy them a little bit more than Mars Open, but I really do enjoy Mars Open. It is it's essentially disc golf on a table. You have a little cardboard piece, token, that you are flicking across this board as you're trying to get it into the hole, essentially. So it's also a little bit like golf. But it's also just disc golf. So you can create your own Mars Open courses. There are preset courses in the rulebook where you can set up certain things in different ways. You use a lot of the empty table space itself. There aren't like constantly obstacles in the way, although there are some things in the way, some things that you're supposed to put on the table itself. But the table itself is like the platform, the course itself, and you set the basket, the hole, as far away as you want. And similar to Ice Cool, the things that you can do with the disc, they designed the token itself, the thing that you're flicking, really well, so that you can just flick it straight, but there's ways to get it to curve around things. It's very aerodynamic in that way. And so even more than Ice Cool, I think, if you love that throwing, if you love the aspect of disc golf where you're throwing disc and curves and curving them around obstacles, I think you might really enjoy Mars Open. That's my number 6 game on this list. And number 5, so I get into, up here at the top, I get into things where there is a projectile element, but really get into some of my favorite dexterity games that could be good for disc golfers. At number 5, I have Tumblin Dice. This is a game where you're doing a couple different things. It's very light and easy to get to the table. You are assembling this platform that looks a little bit like a staircase, a descending staircase, and you are rolling dice or pushing dice down this platform, trying to get as close as you can to the edge of the platform, the end of the platform with the dice, with the highest number on your dice. The reason that matters is the closer they get to the edge, the closer they end up on the edge, the more points they're worth, because there's a multiplier. Basically, I don't remember the exact multiplier, but I think if you get it to the edge, you get to multiply 4 times the number on the die. So if you roll a 5 and it gets to the very edge, that bottom tier, it's 4 times 5, that's 20 points at the end of the round. And so it's really easy to get to the table. So if you're a non-gamer disc golfer and you just like, I'm sure you've rolled dice at some point in your life, you're essentially just rolling dice down this platform, but there's a strong dexterity element because you can't just throw the dice as hard as you want. They will easily just bounce right off the platform. Similar to disc golf, there are often out of bounds and barriers where you're trying to throw at a certain object, but if you go 10 feet beyond that object, you're out of bounds. You're in the creek, you're in the pond. And so I really like that element of Tumblin Dice where there are limits to how far you need to control your own strength, basically. and meet those limits as you throw these dice. Or you can go with a much more timid shot, a timid, excuse me, approach shot and get fewer points, but not risk going out of bounds. So yeah, that's Tumblin Dice at number 5. At number 4, we have Crash Octopus. This is the most recent, actually no, there's one other game that I played more recently, but it's probably the newest game on this list. This is a game, it's an outlandish game where you have crashed in the ocean with the other players. Your ship has crashed, it's almost sinking, and you are trying to gather as many different things onto your ship as possible. That's the thematic element of the game. But along the way to do that, you are flicking and pushing, mostly kind of flicking these pieces towards your ship. You're trying to hit your ship with these pieces. So there might be a person who's stranded at sea, and you're trying to flick that little wooden token so that it hits your ship token. If it collides with your ship token, you get to put it on your ship. It has a nice little rules tweak there where you can't just flick the token that's closest to your ship. That token is ineligible. And you also can't flick any token that you already have on your ship. You're trying to get a variety of stuff on your ship. And there's a lot of obstacles that end up in the way, including this octopus with tentacles coming out of the water. So very much like disc golf, there are all these different obstacles that are set up on the board. There's a confined course set up by this rope that kind of goes around the course on the table. And also there's a fun random element, because random lucky things happen in disc golf, where you are bouncing a die off of a cylindrical octopus head in hopes that it'll hit other players on the table. So it's strongly competitive, it's outlandishly fun, and there's a lot of different types of flicking and maneuvers that you're doing throughout the game. That's Crash Octopus. At number 3, we have some 3 games that I really, really love. One is Coconuts. This uses projectiles in a very different way, because in disc golf, you're just using your own arm to throw the disc. You're not using something else. In Coconuts, this is really a children's game, but it's a lot of fun for adults. Fun drinking game too, if you're into that. In Coconuts, you have this little monkey catapult, and you are putting a rubbery coconut token in the catapult and hurling it in the hopes of getting it in some cups. So it's a little bit like beer pong, if you ever played that back in your college days. You're flicking these coconut tokens into these cups. And once you get a cup, you are collecting it and putting it in your own area of the board. However, it's still on the table, and so any player can target those cups, which makes it the game kind of outlandishly fun for a couple of different reasons. Because A, you can target like the big collection of cups in the middle of the table, or you can target a specific player, especially if they're pulling towards the lead, that you win the game by having 6 cups on your side of the table. And also these coconut tokens, they're rubbery, so they bounce. So you might miss a certain cup, and then the coconut might bounce into another cup. You might bounce into a cup and then bounce out of that cup. Crazy things can happen with these coconuts. And also, there are different colors of cups. There are mostly yellow cups on the table, but there are also 4 red cups. And if you hit one of them, you immediately get to take another turn. So it's really satisfying to hit one of those red cups, because you then get to, it's a nice catch-up mechanism. You can hit the red cup and then get another cup right away. Coconuts is just a lot of fun, and I think it's one of the few games on this list that uses an object other than your own arm, really, but you still have to be very careful about shooting too close, shooting too far, that sort of thing. That's Coconuts at number 3. At number 2, I have the one game that I actually own. I did own Coconuts, but I lent it to a friend, and this is Flip Ships. This is, I think, the only cooperative game on this list. I'm looking at it. Yeah, only cooperative game, which means that you are working together with other players in a kind of 80s style arcade game where you have these alien invaders that are coming towards Earth, and you are trying to flick a token to take out these invaders. Let's see, here's the image on the back of the box here. Is that the right side? Nope. That's the right side up. So you have these cards that represent alien ships that are moving towards you, and off the edge of the table here, you are going to flick a cardboard token and try to land it on certain cards. There are certain cards that you're trying to avoid, certain cards that you're trying to hit. Mostly you're trying to hit as many cards as possible. And sometimes, like you can kind of see it here, this token landed on 2 different cards, so you get to take out both of those cards. There are moments of glory in this game where you amazingly hit like 4 cards. You landed on all different 4 cards. You get to take out all those cards. There are also moments in this game where you completely miss. You hilariously miss. And because it's a cooperative game, it feels like it's part of the story, part of the moment, rather than just a failure on your part to flick something well. Flip Ships is probably the heaviest game on this list, even though it's not all that heavy. And so I would only recommend this if you aren't brand new to hobby games, but if you have a good teacher or if you have started to get into modern hobby games, I highly recommend Flip Ships. This is a wonderful dexterity game that I think will resonate really, really well with disc golfers. The number one game on this list, though, is probably the most expensive, unfortunately, and that is Crokinole. This is a bit of a classic game at this point, where it's this beautiful round wooden board, typically wooden, really smooth surface, and all you're doing on your turn, you have a partner, usually you're playing partners, you have a teammate, all you're doing on your turn is taking a little wooden token and you're trying to flick it so that it either gets, you're trying to do a couple different things. Either you get into the middle circle, a little indented circle, like a basket, a hole essentially, in the middle of that middle circle, or if an opponent already has one of their tokens somewhere on the board, you're trying to hit that token. And between you and that middle circle are little wooden spokes. And so I was watching Megan play this the other day. I was playing this at a party, and people hit these wooden spokes quite a bit, which is exactly the experience in disc golf of hitting a tree. It is exactly the same. You've lined up this perfect shot. You know that you can hit this basket. It's right there. You know you can hit this other disc that controlled by another player, and you just hit a spoke and it bounces back, or it's dead. It's dead upon hitting that spoke. It is, and I know that's one of the more frustrating experiences of disc golf, but it also makes it all the more fun when you are able to miss that spoke or that tree in disc golf. Crokinole, I think, is just a fantastic version of disc golf on the tabletop. It really distills the disc golf experience down to just a quick, light game, and also you get a partner, so it's fun to play games with partners or teammates sometimes, as we do in doubles in disc golf. So yeah, if it is a little bit more expensive, but if you are looking for a tabletop version of disc golf, I highly, highly recommend Crokinole. It's a game that I really, really enjoy. So yeah, that's my top 10 list here of dexterity games that I think disc golfers might enjoy. Feel free to comment in the comments if you enjoy these games or if you have other suggestions. I know there's some flicking games that I mentioned in the honorable mentions that I haven't played that might fit this category perfectly. Or if you just want to mention your favorite dexterity games in the comments below, I'm happy to hear them as well. Thanks.